Good morning, Doctor. Welcome back.
Good morning, Venkatesh. Nice to be back again.
Thank you. So our topic for today is creativity. And the reason it's part of our series is it is so obvious that when we are in the midst of a creative mode or doing something creative, we feel good. Our general productivity, our wellness, our relationships are all much better. So we'll examine a little, is that just something that happens, or whether we can sort of do something to be more creative, and how do we sort of feed our creative energies? So that's why it's part of our talk. Yes?
Right.
Thank you, Doctor. Over to you.
Okay, thank you. Well, the word creativity is a little formidable. And many people get a little, flustered when they hear creativity.
Correct.
And they sort of think that the creativity is meant only for people in arts,
Correct.
fine arts and stuff like that. And if you are a scientist, you cannot be creative. That's the kind of a thing they seem to think.
Correct.
But it's not the case.
Correct.
Creativity is with us every moment of our existence, because no two moments are the same. So every moment is new. And to take care of that newness, you require creativity. Like, for example, crossing the road.
Right.
Friend is standing across the road on the other side of the curve, and you are on this side. Now you have to take a decision. And if there is a traffic jam in between, you should know how to wade through the traffic and then how to reach your friend and so forth. So there is an element of creativity, and we'll take a closer look at creativity. But there is no need to get flabbergasted by creativity. You're all being creative all the time. Yeah. So let's see how.
A very good point, Doctor. Very good point to start off, because like you said, the first thing about creativity is, am I creative? Oh, creativity sounds like a big thing. Some are gifted, some are not. So perfect place to start down. Yeah.
Right. Good. So I have been creative in communicating this to you.
Absolutely.
So we are thinking creatively most of the time, although we are not aware of it. As we just saw, your thinking is innovative because, like Aristotle and Androcles will put it there, you have to take a decision every moment of your life to lead the next moment, and that requires creativity. I'm saying it again because now creative thinking is a word that we use very glibly.
Right.
But it is okay because it's being put into practice. And creative thinking is something that we can understand. People can understand creative thinking. They may not that easily understand creativity. Because creativity thinking, they think, it's closer to thinking, whereas creativity is abstract, and so forth. All this doesn't come naturally. And we just carry on with our work, being unaware of the creativity of very existence and so forth. So creative thinking is a little more prominent in some, not so prominent in others. And some people are overtly and visibly creative, and some people are not. But that doesn't mean that you should not be creative around the clock, 24/7. So let us take a look at this creative thinking, creativity a little more closely. Next slide, please. Now, this author here, the author of this particular paper, the document, differences distinguishes between creativity and innovation. And now, if you see the graph, if you see the visual, the word creativity is one word, and creativity, on the other hand, innovation is many words. In innovation, you've got processing, you've got ideas, you've got vision, you've got creativity. See, look, the word creativity has appeared under innovation also. So by and large, people don't realize, but then they don't mind also. They use it interchangeably. And especially if they want to communicate something more strongly, then they use the word creativity or innovation at the same time properly. So might a little bit it's a little odd, but it is all part and parcel of the thinking and decision-making process. If you think accordingly, then you decide accordingly. If you don't think accordingly, etc. Now, to realize that innovation, again, to repeat, you've got creativity within it, you've got vision, you've got growth, you've got inspiration, you've got development, you've got
Correct.
process, you've got process development and so forth.
Correct.
So let us take a look. Any comment on this, Venkatesh? We are
Yeah,
going
no,
to see
no,
more
I
of
think
it now.
very important point, sort of connecting it to what you've just been saying, that all of us are, without knowing it, creative.
Right.
And one of the things is that we don't realize that, when you, like you said, we are being creative all day long. Some people don't realize, but when you think about it through the lens that you have to keep innovating to do small things or bigger things, one of the inputs into them is always creativity, right? And creativity is all, like you shown in this picture. Creativity is just about being able to create a new way or a new combination of things, as we will soon see. And it is happening. Both these words sound formidable, but they are part of our life. And one other interesting thing in this picture is that everything about what we do is not creativity, but it's one of those, right?
Yeah.
Idea, process, creativity, they're all combined for us to do the little changes and new things that we need to do every day to make our things work. Yeah.
Right. Now, to facilitate clearer thinking, many authors have recommended the distinction as below.
Right.
Creativity is thinking up new things, whereas innovation is doing new things. Now,
Correct.
innovation, as we just saw, to repeat, creativity is familiar word.
Right.
Innovation is not so familiar, and so forth. So
Right.
you clearly sort of make a demarcation between the two, but it doesn't
Right.
really matter. Innovation is less commonly used. Creativity is more commonly used. In daily conversation, creativity word may appear a dozen times. Innovation doesn't appear that many times, and so forth. Unless you take a concrete example and compare it. It
Correct.
doesn't matter. It doesn't really
Right.
matter. We should know that it's a complex process of interdependent concepts,
Correct.
like that.
Correct.
Next slide, please. Now, as we saw, innovation of ideas, you've got electric bulb, you've got something else.
Correct.
All these things will come under innovation. It doesn't matter to us. We can proceed. We can go along.
Right.
Yeah.
This
So
is an
here
interesting one. Yeah.
is creativity is putting together known elements. And
In unique ways.
in unique ways. If it is unique, then you are creative, more creative. You are putting together things which are known, but in a different way, and so forth. Okay, I
So
think
this
this
is an
much.
important place, Doctor, for us to pause, because I think this is a good place for people to realize that when you say, how do I start being creative, or how can I feed on my creativity? It's not like you start with empty inspiration or you waiting for something lightning from the sky. Very often the process is you take what you already know and combine
Right,
them and play with them in different ways. And you get,
right,
you sort of feed the ability to create new combinations. And that's a very prosaic but also very accessible way of thinking about creativity, right? So in
right,
Hindustani
right,
classical, which you sing, once you know all your notes, like the Sound of Music song goes, you combine them in different ways and you get different songs. You
right,
combine them in different ways and you get different tanas. But
right.
the first process is a simple process of knowing the notes and combining them, and that's the way you get started, right? You're not waiting to suddenly create a incredible composition. That's not how actually it works.
Correct, correct, correct. True. Next slide, please.
Yeah.
Now, another example of the word creativity.
Right.
Creative space, it's an example of somebody mentioning a creative space. And that is within that space, whatever you are doing, you are thinking, you are acting, you are accelerating or decelerating, whatever that is your creative space.
Right.
And that will be with you. And if
Correct.
you know how to keep and leverage your creative space, that much
Correct.
more creative you will become, and that is of a great use in augmenting one's personality, and also it helps the society in coming out with new ideas.
Correct.
Like if you look at the Silicon Valley guys, they are all dealing only the same binary thing, yes and no, and end up with something that will shake the universe.
Right.
So that creative space has to be respected and fostered. This is
Correct.
where people have a lot of faith in freedom of expression. They say, yeah.
Correct.
Creativity has something to do with freedom again. If you are free to
Correct.
do something, yeah, you are creative. And if you are
You need
cramped all the
space.
time,
Yeah.
yeah,
No, very
yeah, go ahead.
interesting. Yeah, no, very
Yeah,
interesting when I connect it to wellness, right? Very specifically making sort of those points explicit. You need the space to be free, That's at a conceptual level or at a mental level, but it can even be as simple as physical, right? When
Right.
you go out of home, right, and you are in a larger space, you become a little more creative, which is why walks are useful. When you sort of organize your work space itself, these are the more physical manifestations. To
Right.
feel a little free, not clutter everything. So I think you keep on talking about don't clutter, don't clutter.
Yeah.
Don't clutter is to create the space, right? And
Right.
it's a very crucial part of being able to create the mental space. And freedom of expression is at another level, which is that you should be able to speak or sing or talk or paint what you feel like. That space is crucial for creativity. Very nice.
Yeah. 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 In this context, it's important to know the significance of the word stereotypy.
Right.
Now, stereotypy is the other side of the coin. You know, you are being creative and you are being innovative, and you are doing the opposite of it, and you are being stereotyped. Stereotypy is associated with monotony.
Correct.
Monotony again leads to diminishing returns. If you do too many things, there is cross a point of diminishing returns. But stereotypy is also important, and is an important component of our being.
Correct.
You wonder why is it important? Because some degree of stereotyping gives you the comfort of stability.
Uh,
You are not stereotyped. You may you may wonder about what you are doing. You can't be changing every moment,
correct.
like Androcles or whatever. So you have to know the importance and the significance of stereotyping.
Correct.
And beyond a point, stereotypy is diminishing in returns. Otherwise, stereotypy is an integral part of our behavior. For example, chanting mantras.
Right.
You're into the temple and you're chanting away to glory. And what are you doing? You're being stereotyped. In your
Right.
manifestation, you are stereotyped.
Right.
But the outcome of it can be creative.
Correct.
You see the paradoxical relationship between stereotypy and creative. And there are some people who say, do sing Gayatri mantra 1,000 times. Is it
Right.
stereotypy or creativity? Unless you practice it, you wouldn't know.
Yeah.
You may think it is stereotypy, but it is innovative in a very subtle manner, and
Correct.
so forth.
No, very good
So
point. And before, I mean, I'll use an example very close to what you said, and which is the one we just discussed, music, right?
yeah,
When
yeah,
you're a beginner, you have to do what at least in Hindustan is called paltas, right? I don't know what the
right,
Carnatic equivalent is,
yeah,
but you are doing these combinations of notes. You first have to do them again and again and again, like to your point, leveraging the
right,
fact that you get the benefit of getting comfortable. In sports, there is things called drills. In mathematics, when you're learning simple alphabets or whatever, you have to keep on writing. But as you do more
right.
and more, you can, like to the earlier page, you can combine them in creative ways, and soon, slowly, creativity begins to come from that stereotype.
Correct, correct. Very true,
Very
very
interesting.
true.
Yes.
So just a quote from Albert Einstein. He said, genius is nothing but making a complicated thing simple. Don't worry about the exact
Correct.
punctuations.
Correct.
He said, when somebody asked him about theory of he said it's not E is equal to MC square. And, then you have to probe to whether it is simple or not. E is equal to MC square could be simple, but at the same time very complex. But
Right.
the more you simplify a concept and thinking, the clearer it becomes.
Correct.
Simplicity leads to clarity, and
Correct.
clarity helps in facilitation of execution of correct thinking and ideas and so forth. So if Einstein said it, it must be true. But if we say it, it is also true. So let us simplify things. Simplify, simplify, and simplify, and
Correct.
there
And
lies your genius, and so forth.
this
Yeah, go
goes
ahead.
back to a very early talk of in this series on minimalism, right? And which is
Yeah, minimalism.
declutter,
Yeah, correct,
drop excess, drop a lot of excess, and that automatically causes
correct,
simplicity, right?
correct, 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 correct.
Yeah.
So it's a classic example of a single line being drawn to represent Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma
Right.
Gandhi is often represented in line drawing. Only
Correct.
one line, which is simple enough to go around and come back, that is Mahatma Gandhi.
Correct.
The whole universe is sort of distilled into that, and so
Correct.
forth. Now, there are many such examples. Now, here is another example of how simplicity and creativity and other things blend themselves. They have to blend.
Correct.
You cannot be simple on one occasion and then very complex on another. So it should be a blend of your own positivity and your creativity and even innovation, if you like. And that is where what you see in musical geniuses, whether it is
Right.
Yehudi Menuhin or Ravi Shankar or Sri Ravi Shankar, a philosopher, whatever. So here is a big example of how creativity can move things. Creativity can move mountains, literally. That word can inspire people to action. And if you are inspiring somebody to action in a very sophisticated manner, you are being a genius. Yeah. A genius doesn't have to be only confined to oneself. Genius is there manifesting itself and leading to further,
Yeah.
very
There is
complicated.
collective creativity which comes out of being able to enable others to be creative. Correct.
Right. So here is another example. A guy, village potter,
Right.
what has he got in his hand? He's got only clay. And
Right.
that clay also, unless it is mixed with water, just clay.
Right.
And then he takes it and puts it on a potter's wheel, and
Correct.
then they rotates it, and then what you get, bingo,
Correct.
you get a pot, you know.
Correct.
So that is creativity.
Correct.
You take nothing out of something and then make something again out of that. Yeah,
Correct.
it is not mere play of words. It is a very complex philosophy and very practical philosophy.
Right.
So within your simplicity lies the complicated behavior and thought process of a potter's brain, so forth. Yeah,
And there
whatever
is
that.
to this, there is a simple, there is a very simple element to this as well, which is you are taking a wheel, you're moving it, you're sort of, the movement is allowing you to shape it. You wouldn't be
Right,
able to shape it the same way. Why is there a wheel at all? You need to keep it in motion. Apart from its being malleable, you are actually using that motion to shape it. And,
right,
it might sound too metaphorical, but actually that's a simple process for creativity.
right,
Repetitive, seemingly repetitive, constant, almost the same action, but you're varying your inputs to use your, a phrase you use all the time. You're
right,
marginally varying your inputs to that thing while continuously doing something almost similar. And out of that incremental small things comes the pot, right? You're making
right.
incremental movements on that clay with a moving, constantly moving thing. That's sort of the
Right.
equivalent of the process of the stereotypy leading to a creative process. Yeah.
Right. Very true. Very true. Very true. Now, herein enters another entity called logical thinking.
Right.
Now, logical thinking should ideally, theoretically mean that you should think, but you should be logical.
Right.
Because many times our mind wanders and then goes into illogical thinking, illogical behavior also.
Right.
But then if you do it logically, then it is acceptable to the people around you.
Right.
If you are thinking and behaving in a manner which is not acceptable to others, you will not be called logical because
Right.
you have to present a logic, and that logic will have to shape up things as we just saw, whether it is making a potter's wheel or whatever. You should be logical. Otherwise, you will not be acceptable. You will be
Correct.
thrown out of the society. So, when that logical thinking has an element of art in it, because there is a creativity in it, creativity from zero to something. So that it's an art,
Correct.
and it has to be thought about,
Correct.
yeah, and creativity has to be thought and expressed and then conformed, and so forth. So here it says the laws of reasoning. Reasoning
Correct.
means your logic, your thought process should be acceptable to the guy next doors.
Right.
Otherwise, it's not thinking. You
Right.
know, it may sound a little very odd
No, the
again.
articulation allows you to be logical. I guess the connect to creativity is that even something like logical thinking, there is the
Right,
element of actually being creative in creating that articulation. One. Two,
right,
while there is a process, there is this element of creativity to something even like logical thinking. The third
right,
takeaway for me is that sometimes we think being logical is the enemy of creativity. No, it's not, as we are about to see. The left brain, right brain feed off each other, right? And
right.
uh, yeah, let's take that thinking thing and walk through the next two slides. Yes, Tom.
So there is another element called intuitive thinking.
Correct.
Now, intuitive many times may appear to be not connected with logic at all. Hmm.
Right.
example, you go to buy a sari in a shop,
Right.
and you got 3 or 4 saris in front of you,
Right.
and you are buying it, say, for your wife.
Right.
And then you say, okay, my wife will like it or will not like it. But there is no logic in it directly, but there is a logic indirectly in it. And this is where intuition comes in. Your intuition tells you that your wife won't like it, or your intuition tells you that your wife wants it this way, and you act on it. And there is no logic in that, because if somebody asks you, how do you know you're taking the right decision? How do you know your intuition is right? But this is where you say gut feeling. If there is a feeling that can come out of the gut and not out of the brain, that is gut feeling. That is intuitive. It's very important. Lots and lots of big discoveries, like antibiotics were discovered at the dead of night, as the scientists lay thinking, and suddenly it occurred to him that this is how it is going to work. And he immediately got up and took a paper and a pencil and scribbled something on it. And then that turned out to be an earth-shaking discovery. And that was based on intuition. There are many such examples of intuition. And in fact, intuition itself can be a topic for
yes,
topic.
yes. And how they are all interconnected. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a powerful mind,
Correct.
Indirectly in the subterranean minds, it's like that.
Which brings us exactly to this. Yes, that the two types of brains working with each other.
Yeah, yeah. So although modern scientists don't necessarily agree with this left and right and central behavior or thinking,
way of defining it, correct.
It is still there. Grossly speaking, neurologists, for example, wouldn't even agree on your left brain exists or something. But then you are deciding on something, you're going to act on something which will not be universally acceptable, but it makes sense to you and it turns out to be good. So your left brain says the following: logical, analytical, linear, verbal, factual, and sequential,
the whole logical process, the very clear, sort of clearly articulated, clearly ability to connect them. Absolutely.
If that doesn't happen, then you are on the right brain terrain. On the right side, creativity, intuitivity, etc., will be there. Like Richard Nixon said, "I have made up my mind. Don't confuse me with facts." So that is right brain. And what kind of a brain is he using? Creativity. Now, if you're sitting in Washington and worrying about a missile being fired in Vietnam, then that connection is a creativity one. It's an intuitive one. And many artists will go by this. Some of the best performances of Mehudi Manohin or Ravi Shankar, they come from this. They're non-verbal. They cannot be communicated in verbal things. There is no way you can express it in ABCD or black and white. And it is non-verbal and imaginative. This imagination is very important. Imagination, again, in the world of art, talks about what an imaginative presentation and so forth. And there it is. And that is an integral part of your thought process and your verbal manifestation, all that. So normally, you say, I use my left brain. Nobody uses left brains alone. So it's a question of, next slide, please. Next slide.
The next one is the final one. Just a moment here before we go to the last slide. I think this is a very important point that you have been building up to, Doctor, which is creativity. While it seems like it's a separate brain or a separate activity, it's an interplay between these two brains, right? We discussed how stereotypy leads to creativity. We discussed in some ways how logical thinking in some ways feeds into intuitive. You will not be able to articulate what it is that was in your mind when you thought about the sari, but that intuition you could articulate once it's there. But it's there because you observed and you were able to collect some facts. So for all of us who are trying to be creative, we don't need to be daunted that is it there or not there. It's sort of binary. It's not like that. The little things that we do allow us to actually build the space to be creative. And that these two interplay with each other is a little more reassuring to the, let's say, to the common guy who is not clear whether or not he's creative. Like you said, creativity in the very beginning can be daunting, but it can be built in these small knits and stitches together. Make sense, Doctor?
Very true. Yeah, next slide, please. There is one last one.
Yes.
See, this is epsilon, if I am right,
Right.
and
Or sigma.
it indicates.
Yeah, I mean, sigma, epsilon, I mean, the symbol being
Yeah.
that of, I guess, summation.
Yeah. Now, whatever we do or think is a sum total of all positive and negative things that we experience or go through.
Correct.
So you call it algebraic sum. You call it, when you, for example, when you are thinking with your left brain or right brain, like Richard Nixon, when he's using his brain, whatever, right or left, he is doing it in an integrative manner or
Correct.
integral manner, where all parts of his brain, including the brain stem, mind you, brain stem is supposed to be without emotions. But even that, amygdala and other things come. So that it's an integral process of how your cortex behaves, how your cerebrum behaves, how your medulla behaves, how your other intangible
parts of your
elements
neuronal
behave.
structure behave. Correct.
So it's an integration that you have to you're achieving. You're achieving it all the time, but you are refining that integration. So this is what we are in creativity. This matters a lot, and matters a lot everywhere. More so if you disciplined way, sort of you put it to use and put it to action. So much I thought is okay, Venkatesh.
Yes, perfect. So just to sum up in the very end, and we can sum up using your summation symbol here, right? The sigma that we have in front of us. Working from there, actually, what we discussed today is that creativity is something all of us intuitively aspire to. Know that it improves our wellness, knows that it improves the quality of our life and work. One of the big questions is how do you tap into it, right? And for some people, in the beginning, it sounds very intimidating because it sounds like something you either have or you don't have. What we discussed today is that it's actually a process made up of many, many small things. Is this, like you said, the summation or the integral symbol is a beautiful place to end this. It's the summation of our left and right brain, of our stereotypical, as in repetitive actions and minor variations in them, combining things we already know in unique ways. All of that comes together to form new ideas, new things, and creates the space. And if we create the space for it, we are able to get the joy of creativity, right? That's what we explored today. I guess the seeds of many future talks are also there in this.
Good.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Look forward to the next one.
Yes, same here.